if you are retaining XRP, boy do I have an exciting story for y'all nowadays. Make certain you press that like button and let's dive right in. So the story starts off with a submit from John Deaton, a totally famous lawyer within the XRP community. But nowadays he is so unfold out. He's recognized nicely throughout the crypto board for being a person who's fought against a whole lot of the sex shenanigans and plenty more. However, anyway, so a quote from Brad Ripple: failed to prioritize going public because that truly did not make any sense below the preceding SEC management. Maybe that adjustments inside the destiny. Now, John Dean just stated, I've already said that I believe we see a Ripple IPO both within the final zone of the year or the primary quarter of next 12 months. The timing depends on how aggressive Paul Atkins is, because the SEC chairman. And I expect the appeal gets withdrawn, Ripple pays the fine, and the case is over. So that is actually on its own already a completely interesting prediction. John Dean, one of the maximum famous attorneys in crypto, himself states he does trust the SEC will take back their enchantment. If you are wondering what the appeal is all, approximately, the lawsuit is officially over, but they may be basically deliberating reopening it. Or matter of truth, they may be type of reopening it with the aid of placing an attraction forward. We've virtually not heard anything. Approximately for the maximum component, at least no longer for the better part of multiple weeks. And to that notion, we additionally had the chairman, or I need to say ex-chairman of the CFTC country, that now that Trump is going to get into office, Gary Gensler out, Paul Atkins in, they're possibly going to withdraw at the least if he changed into a Betty man. He stated he'd bet that they might withdraw their attraction, which is basically just some other retry, right? And that could lead Ripple to pay the excellent of $20,000, $130 million. I forgot the precise number. And then the case is formally performed and over with. Now, if Atkins is showed quickly, this will take place inside the first sector of the 12 months. But because Washington actions slowly, it will probably show up within the second area. So why the enchantment might be withdrawn? Well, it makes no experience for the SEC to attraction the Ripple choice due to the fact as of this factor, they gained and they're getting a massive pleasant. Appealing can most effective deliver awful news for the SEC as in group. The simplest motive the SEC appealed is due to the fact humans pushing for enchantment, Gensler and his minion Tenriro, were given their prima donna feelings harm by getting their butts kicked by using Ripple and 75000 XRP holders. The enchantment makes no feel for several reasons, even though, first, the Torestis decision is a federal district court ruling and is not binding precedent. Two, this basically method that, and something it changed into said can not be used everywhere always, right? Or at the least it is not binding. May be used, however, it's no longer binding. The Ripple ruling has very low persuasive precedence implications regardless, though, so adding it to it. In reality, Judge Rakoff, a fellow district choose, so although its form of quote-unquote nearby, or at least the identical level, I must say, within the same district, although neighborhood, Southern District of New York, has already distinguished and criticized it. So he essentially did not fully trust whatever the decide previously stated, so he went in opposition to it. Several prison students, Mark Fagel, John Reed Stark, and different skilled intelligence safety attorneys have criticized it, despite the fact that John Reed Stark and I haven't had the fine history. I do not consider him on most components. Even skilled monetary news hounds like Charles Gasparino have criticized the selection. So it's no longer like they need to trade it because the president's is horrific. Judge Torres made her ruling very truthful, particular, and consequently, best relevant to the facts of the Ripple case. Therefore, the decision itself has very restrained, persuasive use. Moreover, in her decision denying the highbrow attraction, Judge Sherez made clean the selection did no longer rule that everyone's secondary marketplace income or digital belongings may want to by no means constitute the sale of securities. She ruled that the evidence or lack thereof offered by means of the SEC within the Ripple case associated with secondary income of XRP did not satisfy the Howey check. Period. That there are situations that could exist which include a mass advertising and marketing campaign associated with crypto belongings like Luna from Danquo that would satisfy Howey. In her opinion, Judge Therese did no longer observe all Howie elements. Her decision handicapped applied the 1/3 issue, and she or he ruled the SEC failed to prove XRP clients relied on Ripple or its executives. She explicitly said that given that all Howie elements ought to be happy, there has been no need to use all of the different factors. In my opinion, beneath the Second Circuit law, the commonplace employer component of the Howie take a look at is plenty weaker for the SEC to establish than the third factor, which Therese stated they failed to fulfill. And thus, even supposing the SEC gained at the Second Circuit, which I don't believe they will, the case might be remanded to Judge Therese, and he or she could then practice the opposite Howie factors and probably rule the SEC did not prove a commonplace corporation related to secondary market income. If so, we are able to get the equal end result we have these days, besides, and we'd misplaced a lot of money, numerous time, and effort. If Ripple, this is Variety 5, misplaced on the Second Circuit. They might apply for certiorari to the U.S. Supreme Court. The Supreme Court takes cases that involve big felony questions, or in which there are conflicting choices among distinctive circuit courts. Raykov ruling as opposed to the Therese ruling. There was a reckoning in the UK over the definition of process, which Raykov ruling as opposed to the Therese ruling. Since in this example the ruling would have vast prison importance, and considering digital assets have come to be so distinguished, and we're talking approximately 1930s legal guidelines being carried out to fashionable day tech, there may be a real desirable threat the Supreme Court takes the case. At the Supreme Court, the SEC should lose big and larger than they have got misplaced us at this point. Hence my factor appealing the Ripple ruling is an idiot's errand, and I assume Paul Atkins will see it that way. Now, you furthermore may see why I call these unelected bureaucrats prima donnas, and that is going returned to a bit video which Brad Gullinghouse DAI right here, shared the Ripple evaluation. I've been looking Brad Gullinghouse interviews for a long time. Often you could tell whilst he's loss of life to mention the quiet element out loud, but cannot, due to the fact the CEO in him holds him returned, completely comprehensible. My gut says that is one of those instances wherein my gut is in the right 99% of the time. And I think a number of y'all want to see the video, so permits fast pass in advance and play it. So you understand, appearance I do not. X, full of dread, my gut asks you to be as frank with me as possible. Ask, when I read this for the first time, that consider as a form of, there may be up-to-the-minute valuation stuff. But I suppose it's secure to assume that the 11 billion is very outdated at this factor. The whole price of the XRP we personal now exceeds 100 billion. And you recognize every other mark. One of the matters I don't know a way to get my head round precisely is the way that Ripple has traded inside the secondary personal markets has been at a massive